I'm just going back to the range of motion real quick. It just occurred to me. Another thing I get all the time is isometric contractions. So a couple of things about them. Number one, as you well know, in a ton of different exercises, you'll feel an isometric contraction in your abs, for example. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the abs are working. I mean, the obvious example would be the hanging leg raise. Obviously, you will feel an isometric contraction in your abs, but that doesn't mean that they're being targeted efficiently. And also, again, people will just say, yeah, but I feel the muscle. Doesn't that mean it's working? I feel it. Could you just speak on that for a moment?
Yeah. All right. Let's start with just this. If I put my hands together like this and I push them together and I contract my pectoral muscles, I can feel that, right? And if I try to hold that with maximum pressure for 60 seconds or 90 seconds, I can tell you my pecs are going to scream. And I can tell you that the next day my pecs may actually be sore. But it doesn't take much to realize that that's not a good way to build your pecs, right? So there's no doubt that you can feel burn with an unproductive exercise and you can get soreness with an unproductive exercise. Okay, there's no doubt of that. Okay, so we know, I mean, studies have shown time and time again that dynamic exercise, also known as isotonic exercise, optimally stretching that muscle and contracting that muscle, letting the actin filaments slide over each other, that's what causes muscle growth. That's what optimally strengthens muscle. So that means that anytime you're doing an exercise that is causing you to feel a burn, you need to ask, am I feeling the burn because it's isometric, or am I feeling the burn because it's dynamic? If it's because it's dynamic, good. If it's dynamic because it's isometric, not good. Okay, so hanging leg raise is a good example. The abs do not connect to the legs. They don't even touch the leg bones, the femurs, right? They go from the rib cage to the pubic bone of the pelvis. They don't cross the hips. So when you're watching somebody doing a leg raise, clearly what you're seeing the greatest movement is in the hip flexion and the knees rising, and that isn't the abs doing the work. So several questions, logical questions you should ask is, why do I feel it in my abs? And is that thing I'm feeling in my abs productive? The reason you're feeling it in your abs is because when you bring your legs forward, your tailbone wants to kick back. And so the abs are tense to keep that from happening. They're maintaining the posture of the spine while another muscle does the work. So if you think that's beneficial, then you would have to call standing barbell curls a lower back exercise, because without your lower back, you would fall forward, right? It's not a lower back exercise because they're only holding tension. They're only isometric. The biceps are doing the work because they're getting the dynamic work. You can't call an exercise, let's say for the lower back or the abs, an exercise for that, if it has the lesser role in that exercise. In fact, a significantly lesser role, so much so that it's almost not even worth mentioning, right? So the thing about the leg raise is even more inappropriate or counterproductive, because what is raising the legs primarily is one of the hip flexors called the psoas. And the psoas originates on the lumbar spine. And so when you raise your leg up, the reason why your tailbone wants to kick back, it's because it's pulling your lumbar spine forward and it's making you arch, right? So there's no way that you can actually get a full abdominal contraction, meaning let your spine round, bring your rib cage as close to the pelvis as possible, if the hip flexors are pulling the spine in the opposite direction. They're trying to arch your back, right? So you're having a tug of war with these two muscles, and neither one actually gets what it wants. Now, you could say, well, as long as the muscle is working, as long as it's fatiguing, then isn't that benefit? Well, there is such a thing as more benefit and less benefit. Isometric tension has some benefit, but you're really wasting time and wasting energy because you could be doing just the one better exercise and getting a better result. Now, it's even more ridiculous when someone puts an ankle weight and then does a hanging leg raise with the ankle weight. Now what they've done is they're pulling on their lumbar spine harder. They're making it more impossible for the abdominal muscle to get full contraction. So it just doesn't make any sense. This is why it's so important to understand the why of things, right?